Okay, part 2.
Let's not talk about parts and rounds.
No, we've got lots of B's to get through, so it's going to have to be more of a skim.
Okay, you've got until I drink this cup of tea.
Okay.
How many shells?
6.
How many shells for A?
3.5.
Oof. Okay. Crack
But
on.
I went through everything in that one. This one I'm going to have to just pick out the interesting thing, like the things to say something about.
Are you going to read out every one still?
Yes. So it starts with The Babadook.
Great film.
Excellent horror film from Jennifer Kent, served up in a delicious pop-up sleeve.
Cute.
Nice. Back to the Future trilogy, the staple of any collection.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Terrence Malick's Badlands, Criterion Edition. Great film.
Mm-hmm.
You seen that?
No.
So that's Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek going on a murderous rampage across America.
That looks really good.
It's wonderful. Next up, we've got Jean-Luc Godard's Bande à part, which is where Quentin Tarantino's production company gets its name, Bande à part.
Oh, okay.
It has a little dance scene in it that is a big influence on the Jack Rabbit Slim's dance scene.
What does Band Apart mean?
It's Band of Outsiders.
Oh.
So then you've got one of my favourite physical things, which is the 3-disc, but book and stuff version of Battle Royale, which is one of my favourite films.
Which I still haven't seen.
Right, we'll keep that out for watching. It's wonderful.
A bit like the Hunger Games, is it?
It's the Hunger Games for grown-ups.
Okay.
Then Battleship Potemkin. Sergei Eisenstein. Classic. We've got a film that I only discovered last year when we were going through some new wave stuff. I'd never seen anything by Claude Chabrol, and I bought Le Beau Serge, The Beautiful Serge, and it's a wonderful French new wave.
Looks very new wave.
About a guy who turns up in his hometown and kind of causes a stir. 2 versions of Jean Cocteau's La Belle et la Bête. The original Criterion DVD that I kept, even though I've got a nice new upgraded Blu-ray. The Criterion's got a opera score written by Philip Glass that's not on anything else, so I had to keep that one. Then the Richard Linklater's Before trilogy.
Classic.
Can't go wrong. Ben-Hur in a big box. Betty Blue.
Oh, which we were going to put on for Valentine's Day.
We were going to put on for Valentine's Day and it didn't come together.
Great trailer.
Betty Blue's a fantastic kind of centrepiece of the cinéma de look, the French movement of style over substance, but it's wonderful. Then next is a film that I love and I'm trying to get for the cinema to do a double bill with Nicolas Cage in Mandy, which is Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Surely Colour Out of Space.
Well, the 3 of them would go together nicely. So Panos Cosmatos, who directed Mandy, did this one first. This is the film that Stranger Things thinks it is, soundtrack-wise and feeling of the 80s wise.
Beyond science, beyond sanity, beyond control.
It's amazing.
I mean, yeah. Ah, okay.
Then comes The Bicycle Thieves. The key moment in Snowcat Cinema where we realised we could sell out Art House.
Yep.
That's great. Federico Fellini's Il Bidone, which is a wonderful film about some swindlers.
What does that mean?
It means the swindle. 4K version of The Big Lebowski, a film that I didn't like that much until I watched it with the audience in the cinema, and I now love it.
It's off and away, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that the same for Planes, Trains and Automobiles
Yes.
for you?
Totally. Never saw quite the appeal. Now I do. The Big Sleep, Bogart and Bacall.
Yeah.
Then we've got a lovely American edition of the 2 Bill and Ted's films, which is very nice. And then we're starting to hit the really nice limited editions of things now. So Dario Argento's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, a wonderful giallo about, like they all are, an American writer living in Rome who accidentally sees a murder, and he has to try and work out what's going on.
Like Rear Window.
Yes. So like lots of Dario Argentos and lots of the giallis, they're all like the same.
What do you mean gialli?
Gialli's the genre, Italian, originally crime stories that are called gialli because the publisher of the crime books, they had yellow covers, and gialli is yellow, or giallo is yellow.
Factoid.
So the multiple of the plural is gialli. Then we have one of the controversial films in the collection, which is D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. For technical reasons, very important. One of the first films to have multiple narratives running at the same time, cuts between the two, lots of different things that we take for granted now. 3 hours, 15 minutes long. Big old silent film.
Junky.
Unpleasant because the heroes of it are the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh.
2 copies of 1974 Black Christmas. 2 different studios.
Best
versions.
Christmas film ever.
The best. The first film Snowcat Cinema ever screened. We've got Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down.
Hang on. No, it wasn't. Halloween.
No, in Cardiff.
Oh.
Then we've got Black Hawk Down, which is a film very dear to my heart.
Why?
Because I love it. I like lots of Ridley Scott films, and I like that one.
Yeah.
Black Klansman, Spike Lee's best film for a long time. Discussed, but a great film. We've got Black Swan. I might be in the minority, but I love Darren Aronofsky. Darren Aronofsky. Then we've got Blade Runner 4K. We've got a Blade Runner box set of the Blu-ray with all the different versions and a little plastic spinner vehicle in it.
Cute. Is that worth something?
Probably not. Blade Runner 2049. We've got one of my favourite horror films of all time, The Blair Witch Project, which it bugs me that people say it's not scary, as every single time I've ever seen it, it makes my heart pound and the skin stand up, go prickly on the back of my neck.
When isn't the skin prickly on the back of your neck?
When I'm not watching horror films.
When is that?
Dunno. Next to that, so you go from a 1999 classic horror film to a 1950s classic horror film, which is The Blob. So not graphic or nasty or anything, but just dread. An unstoppable thing.
Like It Follows.
Yeah, it's very like It Follows. We've got Blood on Satan's Claw, one of the key works of folk horror.
Who directed that?
Piers Haggard. I don't know whether he did anything else particularly like that, but it's great fun. We've got Blood Simple, first Coen Brothers film. Fantastic modern noir. Neo-noir. It's not exactly modern because it's 30 years old. No, 35 years old. It's not modern. There's a nice little batch here. We've got John Travolta in Blowout, the Brian De Palma film,
I've never heard of that.
which is wonderful. So there's several of these. So we've got Blow Up over there, which I have seen, but it's so long ago that I've left it and I haven't seen it popped because I want to watch it again.
Wait a minute now. You haven't seen it put. It's got films that you've seen before.
If I can't remember them at all. I've seen Blow Up, but it was like 25 years ago. I don't know what happens in it.
Didn't you screen it?
Yeah.
But you didn't watch
I hadn't
it?
seen it for so long. We did it as part of the fashion week, so it's about a fashion photographer. Blowout is John Travolta he's like a student doing some sort of audio experiments, and he overhears a car crashing through a fence and going into a river, like the Chappaquiddick thing with the Kennedys in the 60s. and he's the only person who's got any evidence that is contrary to what the official story on it is, and his evidence proves there was something afoot. So there's this. The conversation's very similar, 70s, about surveillance, and something that you hear being giving a view that's different to what everyone else's view is. And Blow Up is a photographer who takes a photograph, and there's something in the background of one of the photos that leads to a suggestion of murder.
Interesting.
I like those films.
Yeah. We should give that.
Paranoid.
We should give that a watch.
Paul Schrader's Blue Collar, which I hadn't seen until recently, but it's gone straight into the Keep Forever section. So this is Richard Pryor, Harvey Keitel, and Yaphet Kotto as 3 men working in a car factory, and it's about unions and racism and the toughness of being in industry in the 70s. 1978. Great. I like the 70s. Then Blue Velvet, which I think I like. Of the David Lynch's I've seen, I like all of them so far, and I love Blue Velvet. But I couldn't watch it very often because it's pretty horrible. Bonnie and Clyde.
Great.
Classic. Turning point in American cinema.
Why?
Because it was super violent and made very cheaply, and the studios didn't really want to have much to do with it, and it made millions. Boogie Nights in a Tin. I like the films of Paul Thomas Anderson, some more than others. Boogie Nights is one of the ones that I love. Went to see that at the cinema in Leeds in 1997 when it came out.
I've not seen it.
It's fantastic. It's kind of like Scorsese-ish.
Okay.
Very Scorsese-ish, actually. It's like nearly 3 hours long. It's got lots of characters in. It's hilarious as well. It's a good one. Bound. Seen Bound?
Nope.
Jennifer Tilly, Gina Gershon. It's like it's made by the people that made Matrix, the directors that made Matrix. It's a kind of lesbian crime thriller. Born in Flames. Again, hadn't seen until we had it to put on at the cinema.
Yeah, that was a very powerful
It was
evening.
a very
wasn't
powerful evening, yeah, with lots of people with first-hand experiences of radical feminism.
It? Yeah.
It's very good.
It was exhilarating.
And it's a really cool film as well. Very good film. We've got the Criterion edition of Bottle Rocket, the first film from Wes Anderson.
What's that one about? I can't remember.
It's a heist film with Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson.
You don't hear a lot about Luke Wilson.
Don't
these
you? He
days.
did a lot of rom-coms and then he went off the boil.
He did. He was in that series with Laura Linney as her ex-husband.
Don't know that one.
I can't remember what it's called. It was
But
good.
I think we have every Wes Anderson film in. We've got them all on Blu-ray. We've got all the ones that are Criterions. I love Wes Anderson films.
Laura
not-
Dern,
not
not
every-
Laura Linney.
What's that one then?
I don't know.
They're not everyone's cup of tea, but I love them. Right, next up is a film that I absolutely love, and I've been trying to show at the cinema for ages. But it's really hard to get the license for it 'cause it's very expensive because it's from a French distributor. And it's Jean Renoir's film Boudou Sauvé des Eaux. Boudou, Saved from the Water, which is from 1932, and it tells the story of a homeless person in Paris who, I can't think how the very start of it happens. He ends up in the river, in the Seine.
Needs saving.
I think he's pulling somebody else out, but he gets pulled out and he ends up being taken to a very rich couple's house.
That's Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
It is down out in Beverly Hills. He is a terrible, stinky, dirty-looking bearded tramp.
That's Down and Out in Beverly Hills. That's Nick
And
Nolte.
It's he's played by Michel Simon, who's amazing, and it's a comedy of what's the word? Manners. You know,
Yeah.
He's uncouth. He's inappropriate with the women that live in the house. He's awful. But turns out he's actually nicer than the rich family that he lives with.
Yeah.
He's got a heart of gold.
They stuck very closely to that then. It's almost like a remake.
And it's wonderful. And this is the French Blu-ray of it, because I don't think there's a copy anywhere. There was a Criterion edition, but it's only on DVD and they haven't re-released it. So I had to get a French copy, which has luckily got English subtitles, unlike most of the French things that you can get. But yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful film. And when we can show it, everyone has to come see it. Then we only got one shelf left of Whiz Through. We've got Boys in the Hood.
Brilliant.
Very brilliant. Sadly, John Singleton died last year. Not very old. This is 1991. I believe he was 23 when he directed this.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive
Yeah.
for such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
We got The Breakfast Club.
Which is on Netflix now.
Breakfast Club is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I bet that's not as good as watching it from the Blu-ray. Next to Breakfast Club, we've got bless you.
Hay fever.
We've got Ryan Johnson's neo-noir Brick,
Okay.
which is amazing
So good.
and needs to get more love. So this, if you haven't seen it, it's Ryan Johnson made an American high school film that was filled with hard-boiled dialogue and has a voiceover and is basically a noir.
We gotta fly.
But it happens that the equivalent of the detective character is a loner at the high school. So it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt as just a kid at the school, but he does the voiceover as though he's a hard-boiled detective.
That's quite a good concept.
And it's a murder, and it's very good. Next to that, we've got Bridge of Spies, a recent Spielberg, but an excellent Spielberg. Can't go wrong when you've got Hanks with Rylance, and it's based on truth, so that's always good.
Yeah.
Bridge on the River Kwai, another one that I hadn't seen until quite recently, even though it's on the telly all the time and it's like a Sunday afternoon staple and a Christmas staple. I hadn't seen it, and I loved it.
Wait a minute now. Bridge. Okay.
What else would it be under? River Kwai. It's the bridge. Next up, another favourite, Brief Encounter.
Oh.
Can't go wrong with Brief Encounter.
Gorgeous.
I hadn't seen this. When did we go? We went to see this at the cinema in Penarth, didn't we? Like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was one of our first dates.
Yeah, and then I think I've probably seen it half a dozen times since, which is quite a lot in 5 years, for considering I don't really get a chance to rewatch things very often. But we screened it at the cinema.
Yeah.
I screened it at the church hall as a pop-up.
Yeah.
And I've watched it with 2 different commentary tracks as well, I think, and seen it again on the telly.
It never gets old.
It doesn't get old. It's wonderful, even though it's very stilted and very, very plummy. It's just great. We've got next up is another doozy, which is Sam Peckinpah's "Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia," which I haven't seen for a long time, but it stuck with me, and I really want to sit down and watch it again.
Looks like a western.
No, it's set in the 70s. So it's Warren Oates, the face of the 70s. He gets tangled up in a manhunt, and he goes off to Mexico to get the head of Alfredo Garcia, like physically the head, for $1 million.
Gory.
And it all goes really badly wrong, obviously. So it's quite reminiscent, or in fact Breaking Bad. Those bits in Mexico are quite reminiscent of this.
Interesting.
You know, like all the dusty streets with nasty gangs, and just it being probably a stereotype of Mexico. But the wonderful thing about this disc, though, so it's another limited edition one from Arrow, is that they really pulled the stops out for this. So there was a documentary called Sam Peckinpah, Man of Iron, about the director. and on here they present a director's cut version of it, which is over 10 hours long.
It's right up your street,
With
isn't
10 hours of previously unseen interview footage with pretty much everyone that's in it.
Chunky.
Apart from Warren Oates, because he's been dead for quite a long time. Yeah, I need to sit down and watch that again. It's amazing.
Once you get through your 8-hour Napoleon film.
Yeah. I actually know that's in the unwatched. Brokeback Mountain, next. Tears Aplenty. Great film.
Lovely.
Then we've got The Burmese Harp, which is another one that was a quite recent discovery and is amazing. So this is directed by Kon Ichikawa, who's one of the second tier Japanese directors after Kurosawa and Ozu and all the big ones. He did a documentary of the Tokyo Olympics called Tokyo Olympiad, which is like a big famous sports movie. So Burmese Harp is about a load of Japanese soldiers who get cornered in a cave.
Okay.
And they bed in, and they don't want to surrender. And this guy
in
is
a war.
Yeah, in which war was it in? It's made in it's the close of World War II. They're in Burma. It's Japanese army in Burma.
Mm-hmm.
They get surrounded by the British, and they don't want to surrender. And this guy gets sent in. It's Japanese. He gets sent in to convince them to surrender because they're all going to die. They're heavily outnumbered. They refuse because they go for the good old World War II Japanese spirit of better to die than surrender.
Mm-hmm.
The British chuck loads of artillery into the cave. It all explodes. Everything blows up. Everyone's dead apart from the
Don't
guy
spoil the ending.
who got sent. This is right at the start. The guy who got sent in. And he has a spiritual awakening, and he dresses in monk's robes and wanders the land of Burma, spreading peace and love. But it kind of gets tangled up back because people reckon at some point somebody recognises who he is, and you're that Japanese soldier. Why are you now a monk? And it's amazing. It's not. It's a bit more complex than that, but it's amazing.
Okay.
Really good.
One for a rainy day.
Yeah, it's really good. And then last in the bees is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh.
Which again, you can't really go wrong with that, can you?
Cozy.
That's another chuck it on and you couldn't stop watching it if it was on.
No.
So there are the bees.
Great. So same question as the A's.
What would we keep?
What 3 would you pick?
Is it still only 3, even though there are twice as many films to choose from?
I'm afraid so.
Brilliant. And I couldn't choose the Before trilogy as one film.
I don't think so.
That's upsetting, isn't it?
Yeah.
In which case, I'm going to take... Oh, God. Where's the desert island?
I mean, let's not drill down.
Am I ever
into
getting
that.
back from it?
Hopefully not.
Because if I'm never getting back to it, I'll probably have to take Brief Encounter to remind me of halcyon days in England.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Wow. This B section's got lots of things that I really like, but not. Okay, I'm going to take the Blair Witch Project.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm going to take Brief Encounter.
Yeah.
Oh dear. I'd like to say that I'd take Blade Runner with me because I love it, but I don't think I'm going to.
Controversial.
I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
I think I can probably manage without Blade Runner. It's very difficult. Am I just to clarify the rules? Am I taking 3 from each of these letters? So by the end of this, I've got 3 films from each letter.
I haven't thought that far ahead.
Because I've already got a thriller and a Sunday afternoon film from the A's.
I'll say yes to
Okay,
that
right.
then.
So I'm adding to that. So I've already got.
How do you even remember what you said yesterday?
I've got A Matter of Life and Death for Sunday afternoons, Alien for Saturday nights.
Is this like a drinking game without the drinks?
Yeah, and I took Apollo 11 for background. So I'm going to take Brief Encounter. I'm going to take Blair Witch Project. And I'm going to take... Battle Royale.
Okay.
Because it's amazing. I haven't seen it for a long time, but when I first saw it, it was one of the films that I got obsessed with, where I bought it and then I'd watch all the different commentary tracks one night after another. Zodiac being one of those. Zodiac's got 4 different commentaries on it, I think. And I watched the film and then watched it the next 4 nights in a row with the commentary on each night. Different commentary.
I can believe it.
Yeah. So there's 2 different versions of, and I guess I can take this box because it's one film.
Sure.
It's got 2 different versions in, and it's got special features, and it's got a comic in it to read on those days when I want to read something.
Have it then.
It's a brilliant box to take.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go. There's 3.
There's 3.
I mean, I'm very disappointed to leave behind things like Bicycle Thieves and the Beauty and the Beast, but
what can you do? And
c'est la vie.
you haven't got a physical copy of Bait.
I haven't, not yet. I will get, Bait will get picked up at some point. And somebody asked about Aniara, which I'm going to have to get a copy of that because I really enjoyed that.
That was a trip, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good. There's lots of things that are not here, but there's also lots of things that are in boxes that are on DVD. I just haven't updated to Blu-rays yet because there haven't been versions that are worth updating to.
Good.
Because there's always a challenge of you've got to get the best version. Hence, lots of these are like French or German or American versions because they're better than the British ones. So there we go.
Here's to be.
Thanks. See you tomorrow for lots of limited edition box sets in that C section. There's a lot in there.
Can't wait.
Good night.
Good night.